I'm Terri Clark, the Executive Director at Space Coast Early Intervention Center, a inclusion school where we start with our children at 6 weeks and we go through 3rd grade. So I know that a lot of families that live not in major cities or that are, an hour out, and it makes it very difficult, especially if your child is needing services more than once a week. Which most of your kids on the spectrum are going to need services. So one of the amazing things about technology now is that a lot of our therapies now are coming out on telehealth. And so like your speech therapist, you can dial in and get a face-to-face with a speech therapist. And, if you don't have access to computers at home, you can go to the public libraries and they can do telehealth there. So there is ways to get to it. It's not as ideal as that person-to-person contact, but we know behavioral therapists have been using telehealth too to reach families that they couldn't. And a lot of it came about because of COVID, but it's a benefit if you're in an area where you don't have ready access to therapies that you can have them done. And I haven't heard of occupational therapy being done. Doesn't mean that it's not. I think it would be rather challenging, but I'm sure as technology advances that more and more opportunities will come for you to be in contact even though you're not there in person. So that would be really helpful. One of the greatest roadblocks to receiving services is our health insurance. And that's one that we battle every day. And so when you begin that diagnostic process with your child, you need to start talking with your insurance company. Now, most states have a rider in there or a law that services for autism are to be covered, but companies that are carrying your insurance don't have to follow that state law. So if you're being insured by a private corporation, you need to be looking into that insurance. And if that insurance doesn't cover it, you need to be looking at what your options are at getting insurance elsewhere. Because in the long run, even though that additional insurance may be a little bit more costly, in the long run, your child will get the services that they need, and it'll be a lot less expensive than trying to pay for the services out of pocket, because they do need a lot of services. There is great hope in the services that you can provide them as a child, or that a school can provide them. So getting on board and working through what insurances will cover and not cover is incredibly important. Family dynamics are challenging at best as we introduce, especially if you've gotten an early diagnosis. It's challenging if it's your first child. It affects your marriage. It affects your lifestyle. It affects the time that you have to do. It even affects your friendships. And so you have to be prepared that things are going to change for you. And, you have to be prepared as a family that when you take your child out into public, that there may be people who stare and who don't, I don't think that they do it to be mean. I think they just don't understand. And it's not like your child can wear a shirt that says, I have autism, which probably would make things easier if they could. But you have to be prepared for that, and that the kids, and so if you have other kids who are older and who don't have that diagnosis, it's really important that you begin to teach them, train them to take care of their siblings, to be an advocate for their siblings. So they have to be taught, because they too don't understand it. They don't understand why their little brother acts differently, why he appears differently, why he doesn't look at us the way that we do, or why he isn't talking yet. These are all things that you have to have conversations with your other children, and they have to be trained to come alongside and take care of them and to defend them from stares or bullying that may occur in school. Our society's come a long way. I mean, when I was in school, we didn't even know special needs kids existed because they were kind of housed away from the typical population. And unfortunately, we don't do that anymore. But we're also not very good at educating the public about the differences in people, or why Johnny learns slower, or why Sally flaps her arms, or why Joey doesn't look at you in the face. We're not told that. We're just kind of told to be nice and polite and just kind of ignore it. And when I've talked with special needs parents, the best parenting is when they see something like that happen, they just confront the parents and say, would you like to know about my child? Can I share with you why my child is this way? If your child has a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store, it's just really easy to just real quickly educate parents instead of drawing back and being ashamed of what's going on. It's just to look at somebody and say, my child has autism. He's having a meltdown because the lights are too bright, or there's so much noise in here he can't handle it, as opposed to letting people think that he's spoiled and just demanding his way, because it's rarely that. It's not often that. It's that they're demanding their way. It's that suddenly they can't deal with their environment, and that's the only way they know how to deal with it. So I think as parents, we have to educate people around us, and likewise educate our family and teach them how to handle these unique situations. And again, as I said before, that we really need to pay close attention, and when our family is not functioning well, we need to get help. We need to easily admit that this is a tough situation. This is not a normal situation, so we need to go and find a professional who can help us. And that's really great too if you're in an area that doesn't have psychologists. Psychologists are easy to do telehealth with, so you have that additional ability to get and talk and have somebody kind of walk you through this, so that your marriage will stay intact, that your family will stay intact, and your kids will come out of this healthy and advocates for special needs populations. Having raised a special needs child, he was not autistic, he had auditory processing deficit, but we still go through the same things as a parent. So one of the first things as a parent that I would suggest a parent do is that they really redefine their hopes and dreams. So when that child has when I was told that my child wasn't going to get out of high school because he could never learn to read, that was crushing. And I can only imagine what it is like to have a diagnosis that your child has autism and may never interact with the world, or whatever some doctor will tell you. And so at that point, as parents, we really need to come together and make sure that we've redefined what we want for our child, and that we don't limit what we want for our child because of a diagnosis. So I never thought that my child wouldn't go to high school, even though at 8 years old, second grade, I'm being told he's not going to get out of high school. I still expected him to go to college. But I also had the anticipation that if college wasn't in his future, I'd be there helping him find something else. And as a parent, that's what we have to do to keep our sanity. We have to find what's special about our child, and we have to love them right where they're at, and then grow them from there. And we have to do that as a team. If you're lucky enough to have a partner, you have to tackle it as a team. If you don't have a spouse or a partner involved, then you have to surround yourself with community that's going to help you get through those really tough times. But to me, it was never accepting a defined future. You don't know what your child's future is going to be like. I don't know what your child's future will be like. Your physician doesn't know what your child's future will be like. Just hard work and determination is what's going to define your child's future. And as I tell my parents when they come to my school, I don't know how far we can take your child, but I know we can move them forward. And we're going to move them as far forward as we can. And that's what parents need to come together and move their kids forward, whatever it takes.